Well, Peter and I are brothers, and we've been playing together for 30-something years now. And we were playing as a classical string quartet with a couple of others. And some friends at parties, basically, we were mucking around playing. Kronos Quartet had done a version of Purple Haze, and so we transcribed that and started playing it, and everybody loved it. So we took off from there. Basically, we did Metallica's Enter Sandman, and we did Blister in the Sun, Violent Femmes, and a few other popular songs, and entered the band competition at our uni, the University of New South Wales, and surprised ourselves more than pretty much anybody else, I think, by winning. So we started writing our own material. Peter was writing quite a bit early on. A few months in, our original violinist went off to join the Berlin Philharmonic, and Lara joined us, which was massive benefit to the band. She brought her voice and her great skills, so we started doing songs as well. And yeah, got some fantastic support from people in the Sydney music scene. Shenzo joined us 10 years ago now, so he's the newcomer.
Still learning the ropes of that.
And also what happened early on is that you and your friends, so you and Chris, the other original viola player, was two violas, so they wanted to start something together that actually had two violas and not two violins, like a normal classical string quartet.
So people often ask us, do we take commissions or whatever? We actually just don't play other people's music. It's, if we do, it's our own arrangements, and we've been playing together for a very long time now, and the dynamic is completely like a band. It's not like a string quartet at all. We write all our own music together nowadays. It's not anymore someone bringing written music or sometimes an idea, sometimes a melody or some lyrics, often nothing, and we just jam it together, and that's where the music comes from. Which is really exciting. We've probably been doing that for a good 10 years now, pretty much. It was by the end of the, Shenzo joined in the middle of the year, and by the end of that year, we'd started writing music together like that.
And there was something about this particular energy and the synergy between the four of us that was very productive.
Shenzo brought some amazing skills in jazz and blues as well, which just changed the dynamic and the kind of the stuff that we write as well, and another step further. So. Yeah, it's become this really productive, creative ensemble. It was really in the clubs and the slightly more alternative music venues, I guess.
Well, the very beginning was after that university band competition where they won, and I joined right after that. There was an agent at that competition, and he booked us in to play at the Byron Bay Music Festival, which was a really, really cool new music festival. And I joined by then, and we whipped up a few new pieces for that, Jeff Buckley and things like that. And so it was, and still we had a couple of originals, but then we played there, and we were kind of the hit of the festival, and there were people moshing and headbanging at the front of our sets. So then the word just kind of spread back down the coast, back to Sydney, and we did a basement show, which is probably like your Joe's Pub or something like that, and I think sold it out on our first show there. And also the Australian Youth Radio picked us up. Oh, that was when we put out our first album.
Yeah, a few years later.
And then picked us up and played our version of Enter Sandman, and it just kind of spread from there.
So we had some fantastic support really early on from a couple of bands as well, a couple of the indie bands who were reasonably big in the Sydney indie scene at the time. So right from those early days, we kind of sat in the indie rock scene of Sydney rather than the classical scene. I mean, we'd all been classically trained, we all came out of that area, and in the early days we were all still playing in orchestras and things. But really, FourPlay from the very beginning was a rock band playing in rock venues. And that's where we got a lot of our inspiration. That's where we learned how to play with distortion pedals and pickups and flange and wire and all sorts of things like that. Yeah. So, and these days, I mean, Peter's got an incredibly broad and eclectic musical taste, and he brings all of these interesting, weird, and wonderful ideas as well. So, what we write these days is much more sort of.
Across the board.
Who can categorise music these days anyway? Really?
It's quite hard to Yeah, and I mean we have an interest in folk musics of all sorts and gypsy and klezmer styles, which find their way in there
And the jazz
as well.
and the blues.
Yeah, as well as I think just from all listening to music together, we'll just start jamming something that, that doesn't sound like anything like that and might sound more appropriate in some sort of instrumental rock band or something.
And that's the other thing is on every single one of our albums that we've put out, we have that whole range, and it's been put to us at times, why don't you just do a folk album or just do a blues album or just do a rock album? And we've thought about it, but really it just doesn't represent us, and our albums are a representation of the fact that we like to cover that really broad spectrum of who we are and what we listen to.
Give and take all along the way. So usually somebody will start with an idea, whether it's a chord pattern or whether it's a riff. You know, often Shenzo sits and doodles
He doesn't
riffs
stop
all the time. So sometimes something will just gel and we'll go, that's great, keep playing that, and we'll start mucking around it, or Peter will start with a bass line.
Yeah. Or a rhythm even, just a rhythm. And sometimes we will then stop. We'll not sometimes, always. They'll come to that point. But then we'll stop. No, we won't always have a fight, but we'll stop and we'll go, well, it needs something else.
Yeah.
We've been doing this thing for a while now.
Where can we take it?
And there's times when we'll just go, let's just throw 7 weird chords into the mix and do something with them or something like that, and we try and keep it a bit free in that way. And the melody will often come last, but not always. You know, so there's no real rules to it, but it's very democratic. I think that's the central thing. There's nobody ever. Well, it's very democratic. But he does what we tell him. No, there's never any case of that. In fact, I think sometimes we'll suggest to somebody you need to be doing a bit more something there or something because it's missing some element or other.
Which is like any democracy, you know, not everybody's always happy with everything in the process.
True.
And eventually it comes together.
To some place, And I think, over the last 10 years since Shenzo's joined, it's gotten easier to write, and it's about trust as well and knowing each other, and because it's not easy to put yourself out there and put your ideas on the line. You take a risk by exposing yourself, and so I think there's a lot of trust with each other and a lot of acceptance, and we really love and respect each other and what we have to give.
The other
Shenzo's gonna cry.
The other interesting thing, I guess, about the process these days is when we're jamming, we all put our phones in front of us with the recorder on, and so we record each jam and we can go back and find, hey, this bit worked and that bit didn't, and then we'll start composing and we'll record a chunk of it and we'll come back to that. So we don't transcribe pretty much anything anymore. You know, sometimes we'll write a riff and we'll go, okay, I can script that. You know, I can write that album manuscript. But a lot of the time it's just recording and going back and listening back.
And by the time you've done that process, you remember it. So it's in there, that's for sure. Yeah, and this album, our latest album, which is going to come out later this year in Australia, is the first album from beginning to end that we have written as a quartet. Other albums, the original songs we had some jam ones like this, or I had written one, or Peter had written one, or Shenzo had a main idea, and we brought it together and sort of arranged it together. But this is the first album that is 100% written by the 4 of us together, and it was a fun process. It was good.
Well, we're very lucky to be coming to the States on the back of a huge event with the support of somebody who has an immense following on the internet in every country in the world, it seems. So the big shows that we've done have been in front of very friendly, very, very big crowds, but we've still been absolutely blown away by how Neil Gaiman, this is. The author, Neil Gaiman, Neil himself, he let us, in fact, he insisted that we open the shows. So we come on before Neil's been seen at all. and we play a few songs, and we've had a really great reception to that. And,
The fantastic thing about Neil's audiences as well is that they listen really, really intently